apartheid era, or the major part of the apartheid era. I see I know what you're saying. Oh, sorry. So what then happened is that they became the main opposition of the DA on the falling off of the National Party, because their stronghold was always Cape Town and still is mostly Cape Town. And so in terms of the characteristics of the current DA party, the DA party have around 15% Black people inside of it, mostly entrepreneurs. And in fact, I was looking at an interview where they were complaining, and some of them, now that the ANC seem to have shed its MK and its EFF links, that those people are going back to the ANC because Ramaphosa, who left the politics because he went into business, as I explained in the last time we spoke, that there are also tribal and ethnic issues on the side of Black South Africans. They're not all one group. MK, and to some extent, the EFF is predominantly Zulus. And they are not what is happening now. So let me go back. For the first 10, 14 years, South Africa literally doubled the size of their economy. They built 1 million new houses for predominantly Black people. They electrified all of the townships that were not electrified during apartheid era. They got involved in significant land reform that was stalled primarily by Zuma and Malini, because their attitude was, the ANC mantra was that the people who would be allocated land is the people who work the land. If you understand the land tenure situation in South Africa, most of the lands in KwaZulu-Natal is owned by the king. And the Inkosis, who are basically like the what you'd call the lords, are the people who basically control the land in those areas. When the issue came up in relation to allocation of the land, what MK group was saying is that it shouldn't be distributed to all who work the land. It should be distributed, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal, to Zulu, the monarch, and he would decide who gets land. And the system that existed in terms of tribal lands, where you have no tenure unless you live in conformity with the rules and the regulations of the Nkosi, would not apply to, so the whole thing of land redistribution was stalled primarily because of conflicts, not with the DA or with white South Africans, but within the ANC and factions related to tribal rivalry.
But Mike, 1 second. How much about, what proportion of the land are we talking about? Because when you hear the figure,
part of the arable lands in South Africa is in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. Most of the other lands, Free State and the side close to the Northern Cape, is primarily desert or semi-arid. Right?
So
Johannesburg, which is a large agricultural area, is actually only irrigated by water that comes from Lesotho, that provides not just water, but hydroelectric power. There's a huge canal and that goes through the mountain that brings water from Lesotho to Johannesburg, and it is paid for by electricity that is transmitted back to Lesotho.
So let me ask you though. No, I want to get something clear. When you see statistics that say that 70% of the land is in the hands of the whites, is that incorrect?
70% of the current arable lands are in the possession of white South Africa. But I'm saying that arable lands is in KwaZulu-Natal. Half of the arable lands in KwaZulu, 50% of the arable lands in KwaZulu-Natal belong to the king.
Okay. All right. Question. South Africa is a large country.
Yeah.
With millions, tens of millions of people. The majority are blacks. Can we say that the blacks are better off now in 2024 compared to 30 years ago?
Well, there's a large black middle class now. Many of whom have migrated from the ANC to the DA. And in fact, I was looking at an interview of a black entrepreneur who says that now that Ramaphosa is in charge, he's in fact defecting back to the ANC. Right? So there's a large middle class in South Africa, but the problem is, and I understand the plight of the MKs, but they're being exploited for political reasons and not necessarily in a manner that is going to result in them getting above the poverty line.
Sorry, right? One second. There are only 3 mics open. Mine, Mike's, and DP Rupert. I'm getting some background noise. I'm not sure which one is coming from.
It's probably coming from my mic, because there's
you have some guests.
There's some guests. All right. In let me Nisha. Right. Yeah, I get enough feedback, so
tell her hi from me too.
Yeah. All right. Yes.
All right. Let's see how we can because I was asking from all indications, so South Africa seems to be a little bit, well, I would say a little bit, more crime. The economy is not as strong as it used to be. Housing and Kiwani and Mike can tell, even though they built so many houses at the beginning, a lot of people are still without proper housing in South Africa, especially blacks.
All right, if I could just respond to that and continue the trajectory. In 2008, when the world economy, you know, we had the meltdown with the US meltdown, financial meltdown. Another thing happened. Thabo Mbeki was succeeded by Jacob Zuma. Right? During the time leading up to 2008, so, you know, I don't get into some of the things that how I got to South Africa in terms of South Africa was a major nuclear power. They had 7 warheads. Part of the agreement with the Americans was that South Africa would be willing to give up their 7 warheads. I went to South Africa on a program based on funding that was provided on the basis that South Africa would give up their nuclear warheads, which they did. During Mbeki's time, the US and Europe generally were pushing for South Africa to modernize their military and to provide more military bases in South Africa for NATO and European whatever, right? This was resisted by Mbeki, right? When Zuma came to power, one of the reasons why Zuma was kicked out of power is that the first thing he did was to sign a massive military agreement with the US and England, resulted in a significant amount of resources being diverted to upgrading their military capabilities, right? He actually got kicked out because during his first term, an audit came out which suggested that that's a major corruption that he's trying to stay out of jail for now. Right? And so not only, and that was just part of the corruption, because that it went all the way down the line. Eskom, which is their electricity company, right? South Africa, when I was there in 1997, had the 3rd lowest cost of electricity in the world, right? Based on 1 million new households, based on the expansion of the productive sector, it was projected that South Africa needed to put in place 7 more generating facilities to cope with the expansion, right? There were some issues about it because South Africa, mostly outside of nuclear and hydro, their mostly supply of power came from coal. South Africa has the 10th largest deposit of coal in the world. What then happened is that some of the people were predominantly white who ran these plants did not replenish the stockpile of raw material, coal, to keep those plants going. Hence the argument and the start of the power cuts that they were they started to experience.
Right. Was that a deliberate act, Mike, or what?
That was a deliberate act of the white bureaucracy that basically was still in place in respect of and it's not just Eskom. The same thing happened at SAA, which is the airline. The same thing happened at Transnet, which is a train system, where it was sabotaged because no white South Africans who were not able to run to Australia and to New Zealand now benefited from, because they were not easily replaced, from the expansion of the economy, and was ripping it off. And that was done, and they got away with that, primarily because there were elements in the ANC that was doing the same thing. And so the downturn of the economy had to do more with leadership rather than just simply racism. Because I'm sure I told you a story about what happened at SAA, because, you know, affirmative action was that South Africa went and looked for the brightest South Africans and others outside of South Africa to bring them in. And affirmative action meant that companies, white companies that employed Black professionals that were brought in, got a a margin of preference in dealing with the government and in dealing with regulatory requirements for their entities, most of which were government companies. Now, the breakdown in South Africa had to do with the fact of two things, that the governance structure that was put in place. So when you had that crisis, the procurement of coal then was suspended and it became a free-for-all. And so the price of electricity and coal went through the roof. And that was direct sabotage, but it was sabotage that was caused by the fact that the leadership in the ANC took their hands off the wheel because they were literally being coerced to get involved in what tantamount to corruption.
So let me ask you this.
They were being encouraged to plunder the state. The white bureaucrats were doing the same thing with the intention to move to plunder, move to Australia and elsewhere, which they did. And that is part of the reason why they had the downturn in 2008 that then caused the recalling of Ramaphosa, who is one of the Black South Africans who actually was the chairman of the Constitutional Commission that wrote the Constitution and the regulations that were post-apartheid. And because, despite the fact that he is a vendor, which is only 7% of the Black population in terms of ethnicity, was brought back. And he was the one who locked up Zuma. And so part of the tension and part of the thing, EFF, Julius Malema, was a youth leader in the ANC who was expelled. He was expelled because he was a firebrand, and in fact he defended. He was upset about the Mbeki negotiating the transition of Mugabe out of Zimbabwe, right? And he said so publicly, and he was censured, and he was suspended, and he left and formed EFF.
Another question I would like the two gentlemen to answer. Time is kind of running out on us. The issue of land. How is it that Europeans, beginning in the late 19th century and early 20th century, the Dutch, the British, they could come and take away the people's land. And now the people need land. I suspect that when they took away the people's land, they didn't ask the king, the Zulu king, whether they should leave his land alone. How is it that we don't have, are they having problem with reallocating land to those who are in need? Because
it's being resisted by the same tribal leaders who have control over the population, the tribal groups. There's a book, you know, and I don't know if I had lent it to Stewart, called the Roper Sands, which give an history of the whole conquest of Southern Africa. And it would be useful for us to look at that, because it speaks a lot about Shaka Zulu. The Zulus are the only tribal group in Africa and in Southern Africa that was never colonized. You know. The only war that the English Empire, at the height of the English Empire, ever lost is the Battle of Islangwana, that is still a museum in South Africa, where they were slaughtered by Shaka Zulu and his thing, you know. There was an agreement with Shaka Zulu almost like the agreement in Jamaica with the Maroons, right? To, in fact, basically allow them to be and to ensure that one, the Zulus didn't join up with the Afrikaners, which they did. If you look at some of the wars, the Anglo-Boer wars, the Afrikaners were supported in those wars by the Zulus. So when you talk about the racial divide at one stage was the Afrikaners and the Zulus against the British.
Okay.
All right.
And so it is not as
As
we
clear
put
cut as we think.
in racial terms, but it is not as simple as that. There were coalitions between the Afrikaans and black people. In fact, Ramaphosa's rise to wealth has to do with Janick, which was an English company bought by the National Union of Mine Workers and funded by Sanlam, which was an Afrikaans financial institution. That's how Ramaphosa now worth $450 million US.
Yeah.
All right. Look, Mr. Moderator, I want to come in here a bit because
I have a question specifically for you to answer.
No, one second, Mr. I kind of think that we're kind of gone off where my objective was. Just a sec. We're gone off where my objective was. One of the things I want us to focus on now is we have a current situation, right? And I want us to try and focus on, with this current situation and this partnership, what is likely to happen over the next couple of years? Because we need to focus on whether or not, for example, if the DA, if the Democratic Alliance starts to push aside some of the things that would be Black Sea as in things that they want and are popular, if they overplay their hand, it could cause a situation maybe for this coalition to, I don't know if it could ever disintegrate. For example, one of the things that the DA has done, they have an agreement between the ANC and the DA. And one of the clauses that I've read about is that they have a say in who else could join this coalition. So if things were to get to a stage, they can say, no, this party cannot be a part of this coalition. So I really want us to focus a bit now on, okay, we have a coalition. I want to be looking down the road. If it doesn't work, what is likely to happen? One particular situation is if they were to, if the Blacks really began to feel that, hey, this is not working, it could lead to
civil war.
No, I'm not going that far. It could lead to, because I think I see a healthy respect for democracy among the South Africans. I see that, based on what I've seen so far. And I think probably Michael would agree with me. I think it could eventually lead to one of these smaller parties winning the next election, or being maybe not a majority, but being probably the party with the biggest share if this thing doesn't work. So I wanted us to look forward. That's really where I wanted us to go.
Right. Could I make a prediction?
Yes, Mike. That's what I wanted. I want us to look forward.
Within the DA now, we see, they have in fact absorbed the right-wing element of the racist element of the for want of a better word, the white ethnic group. All right. What I predict is that you're going to have a break off of some of those elements, and they will become the ultra-right party. Or just like how you have MK break off on the left, you're going to have a break off on the right. If it don't disintegrate into a unstable situation. So what you're going to have is that a lot of the members of the DA now being forced by the moderates in the ANC. And similarly, there are going to be a consolidation of the moderates in the ANC, and there's going to be a left wing, which, despite what I said about Julius Malema, I think he is probably the
best poised
leader because he's older now, he's a little more mature. He was born in 72, you know. Somebody pointed out, because in order to get some background, I actually called some of my friends in South Africa. You know, I was getting a background. Him say, don't mind what you hear Julius say. Julius' children go to a private school. Right? Julius' children and Julius live in Santan. Him don't live in Soweto. Right? So I think that he will become the voice of the poor class and the leftist elements within the government. He in Parliament, in the election of the president, the MK didn't turn up. He was nominated as the person that they ran against Ramaphosa to be elected. His concession speech said that we plan to be vigorous opposition in the parliament. MK and Zuma, if he has his way, wants to go to the streets. Him sound like Trump, you know. The election was rigged. He wanted to run over. It was blah, 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 that kind of approach, right? Partly because...
let me ask you this. Because the MK did not go to that party, that sitting of the first assembly. Does that mean that they cannot be still the official opposition?
No.
That doesn't change.
Their MPs are listed. They just boycott the election.
That particular election, right? Okay.
But something will happen. Zuma is 82, right? There are other leaderships inside there that basically defer to Zuma because of his royal connection. I suspect that in the long run, and the reason why there is no synergy or no collaboration between the EFF and the MK is because despite the talk, Maleni and Zuma don't take tea. Zuma is the one who set him up as the youth leader in the ANC. Both of them are Zulus. Them fighting for the same constituents.
Zuma and who?
Maleni. Julius.
Malema. Oh, Malema. Okay. Okay.
They are both Zulus. Their base is Durban and Soweto.
Which is why go ahead.
What do you see happening in 5 years? And thanks for bringing us back to what do we think?
Actually, what Michael has kind of gone to is really also where my head was at. Because if the DA, as I said, if they overplay their hand, if they overplay their hand, somebody has a mic open.
Mic is open.
Okay. Yeah, that if they were to overplay their hand and force their policies either to be adopted and so on, it is going to lead to more disenchantment among the masses, I think. And then who could emerge? That is what I was leaning to the same situation where the EFF could really emerge in the next election as the person who people are now going to look towards. Because I don't think that, you know, this thing with Zuma, I don't know if they got a big proportion of the vote. But I don't know if it's really about Zuma or really about maybe the tribal connection. But in terms of the person who is actively out there speaking to the people, to the grassroots, and also in the National Assembly, Malema is the man. And you know, as Mike says, he's probably a lot more mature. I think he has frightened a lot of people because, in fact, the guy who is the lead, John, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, the white leader of the Democratic Alliance, he has tried, he's making a case now to go to the international court, the same court that Ramaphosa went to about Israel and the Gaza situation, to try and put charges against Malema, because he's, you know, they have this song which Malema says is really a chant about kill the Boer, you know, and BOER, Boer, you know.
Yeah, those are the Dutch white folks.
Right. And they're upset about it, and they want to paint him as this person who is as if he wants to try and kill off the white people, you know, but that's not the case. And they, in fact, they even defended it in the South African court. And the thing was dismissed. So, you know, there's this. So he strikes a lot of fear, I think, in the other side. But if this doesn't seem to be working and improving the lives of the people, I think that's where the population is going to, you know, I think the EFF might very well emerge in the next, that will be 29, you know, if that's because 5 years. But then we may see a sign in the local elections, which is 2.5 years from now. We may see a sign. Go ahead, Mike.
Let me tell you
Just
something.
before you go, Kiwan and Mike, we have about 4 more minutes to go in this session before we take some questions. But I'm gonna, in your remarks, I'm gonna ask you to look at two things. Are we gonna see, both of you gentlemen, are we gonna see more chaos before there is quietness and peace and development? It is obvious that South Africa is not as strong economically as it used to be. Things are not going well politically for the majority. Are we going to see more chaos with what's happening in politically now over, say, the next 5 years before we really get back into a good situation where things are more quiet? And secondly, and some people may say, what can we learn from South Africa? Before we finish this thing, can we learn anything as a nation here in Jamaica? Gentlemen, I leave those two questions with you.
All right, but Mr. Moderator, just to say, I think I want Mike to zero in on what he was going to respond to.
Yeah, man, he can go back to what he was saying.
First, yes. Go ahead, Mike.
Which was the kind of was getting to this new trend of the next 5 years. The next 5 years.
Okay.
Right? I think the expectation is that if there is no focus on, and I think this is where there is only the agreement between the ANC and the DA. If there is no turnaround in the South African economy, where unemployment come down drastically, where cost of living get cauterized, where
unemployment,
where they get back on a growth path. There's some other nuances that going on, because the two areas of major investment, or the three, is Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg, right? The ANC, in fact, only got control. In fact, they don't really have control of Durban by co-opting the IFP.
Mm-hmm.
And so the IFP is the provincial head of KwaZulu-Natal, to the upset of Zuma, because there are 10 seats in the provincial
Parliament.
Or 10 seats in for KwaZulu-Natal, right? The Indians got one.
Mic is open. Can we ask you to close your mic? Thank you.
The ANC had 3. The IFP had 1, and MK had 3, and EFF had 1.
Mm-hmm.
The DA, the IFP, and the ANC came together so that they would have a majority, so that they would have the premiership of KwaZulu-Natal. And that is most upsetting to Zuma, right? The DA always controlled Cape Town, and the ANC controls Johannesburg, or Gauteng, as it's the provincial name.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is that there is also an economic alliance that is taking place, that is focused more on trying to get the economy back on track. And the argument is that it will take the next period, which is why there is an alliance. Because, I mean, the DA is talking about them defend what's going on in Gaza, right?
Yes,
while
right.
the foreign minister is calling for Netanyahu jailing.
Yes.
Right? Now they're going to have to back off of that.
Right.
And they have backed off of that. And so there are some the John, whatever his name. That's an Afrikaans name, you know.
Afrikaner, okay. Yeah.
Right? Normally the DA head is an Englishman. That's an Afrikaans name.
Okay.
Right? And so in terms of understanding that, the deputy speaker, which is the other thing, is a DA.
Yes.
The speaker is from
the
ANC. Right? The argument is whether they may make this guy deputy president, and the argument is that they may not be the deputy president. It will be 2 ANC deputy president. But there is a vote in parliament for legislation that they agree that have to have 60%. Because the 2 of them together come up to 61.
A vote to do what? To make what kind of decision?
For example, if there is going to be a new wage,
minimum wage. You mean the minimum wage?
It would require 60% votes.
Rather than 50.
Rather than 50. Right? 51.
51, yeah.
Right? That is the agreement that they have. So there are some things to be worked out, and some, you know, if there is not goodwill and agreement going for some integrity, this can get into a roadblock. But I think both sides agree that unless they can get the South African economy back on track, the politics is of no use to the middle class.
Yeah.
ANC or the middle class, the DA. So I suspect that you're going to have a drifting off of the right with the crazy right-wingers, and you're going to have a drifting off and a consolidation. The EFF, you know, lost ground to the MK in this election, you know. MK only was in this election, you know.
They had 11% plus in the last prior one, and then they came down to 9.
Right. So the issue is that they now understand that their own, and they don't want to be consumed or subsumed to Zuma.
Right.
And so they have already indicated that them going participate in parliament.
Yes. And be an
So
active opposition.
I'm hopeful, and I expect, and what I hear Ramaphosa say is that, listen, the next 5 years is about getting the economy back on track, right? He's not really business with the politics beyond that. And in fact, that is the end of his tenure, because you can only be president for 2 terms.
Yeah.
But what about
And-
privatization, Mike? Do you think that is going to be is that one of the methods that they might want to use in order to get the economy back on track?
Yeah, so they're talking about, for example, SAA, to privatize SAA. They're not talking about South Africa, the 10th largest stock market in the world, you know. So they're talking about going to the market. So granted, what you'll have is large corporations who will have a
large chunks.
A large chunk based on their financial capacity. But Janic, which was started by Ramaphosa, started with union money, you know. Janic is one of the 10th largest conglomerates in South Africa today. That's why they brought him back after him retire from Janic as president.
Yeah, there's a particular union that has always been aligned to the ANC.
The National Union of Mine Workers. He is the founder and the president of that. Is the National Union of Mine Workers money, along with some land that bought Janic.
And there's another union called COSATU. Those are the words. Those are the initials. They said that's the largest union.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator, if I might, sorry to break into this interesting conversation.
Yes, sir.
But I would like to ask a member of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston to move for an extension of 10 more minutes for us to conclude.
For us to complete.
Right?
So move, Mr. President.
Can I have a second though?
Second, sir.
Okay, thank you. And also, Mr. Moderator, I would ask that just in the interest of time, when we go to question and answer, maybe if you would, sir, allow probably 2 or 3 questions.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
All right, DP Stewart.
Yes, I think we're at a point. I think we're at a point where we should open.
Because you haven't said much on this point about 5 years time. What you think?
No, I did. I said what I said because I remember I said that if the DA if they overplay their hand, right, and try to push for policies that are anemic to the ANC, in other words, they were popular among the masses and among the Black South Africans, they're gonna run into problems. So that's kind of what we are talking about, and that is what I'm saying would lead to. It's probably gonna lead to people turning towards a party like the EFF, who is not as if they're more independent thinking in terms of, and have always been pushing for the Black South African being on the left. So that's what, and I think Michael and myself kind of agree on that. Is
there a fear of corruption going forward? We know what has happened in the past, but is there a fear that because of what's happening now, the ICE bidder will get the portfolios in the different ministries and that kind of thing?
Well, the president has, who is Ramaphosa, has total control over who he appoints for the ministerial positions, and he has no time. He doesn't have a time limit. Technically, as this is somebody who speaking about the Constitution. In other words, it could take a couple of weeks or whatever. But once he's sworn in, which is later this week, all ministers are no longer ministers. That's how the Constitution is. But I think we don't have. I think at this point it might be good to open it.
We can take the questions now.
Yeah. If there are any, we can open it up because somebody might raise something that we haven't actually touched on, and there are a number of things that we didn't actually touch on.
We have spent a lot of time. I hope that we have learned some things. But what are the questions that we have that we can ask these two eminent gentlemen on South Africa? You can open up your mics and pose your question. Just identify yourself and pose your question. I haven't seen any. I've not been able to. Let's go in the chat. Let me see.
All right.
Don't know if you can see anything, DP Stewart.
No, I'm looking. No, I don't. There are no hands up. There are no hands up. So that's not a problem. I think we can. I don't know if you want to ask us if there's any final words, and you can just.
Yeah, man. Can you give your final words? We'll give you each 2 minutes.
Let's speak to Michael first. Michael can go first.
Yeah, I think that South Africa is on a for me exciting time where they're going to translate, because you know Mandela's mantra was politics without economic power goes nowhere. And I think it was alarming to the people who didn't have South Africa's best interests at hand that in the first 14 years there was such a significant increase in the size of the economy that started to generally benefit Black South Africans. There is a decidedly large, not large, but there's a decidedly significant Black middle class and business class now that exists in South Africa. They have gone through a period where there's people who are trying to turn that back. You know, they want to go back to, you know, make South Africa great again approach. I think this shakeup that is taking place now in the politics, I'm hoping will refocus South Africa back to the economic agenda that is the original approach from Mandela, which says politics without economic development really gets you nowhere. I think they have the intellectual capacity. I've listened on some forums of some young people, South African youngsters, who don't have the Julius kind of mindset, and clearly don't have the DA kind of mindset. Who are the people that I think South Africa need to move towards? So it's about economic development and education. If they could expand significantly as part of the new, which has been indicated by Ramaphosa, investment in jobs and in education and in health, I think the dream of Mandela of transforming that country into a rainbow nation is still on track.
Thank you. DP.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator. I know we're running late, but just in the chat, 2 questions that we had. I'd just like to bring it. One is, I'd like to hear the answer for what should Jamaica learn from all of this. That's one question. And the other one is, Mike, somebody wants to know the name of the book you lent Stewart to cause him to be so bright.
Group of Sand.
Group of Sand?
Rope.
Oh, Rope of Sand. Okay. Okay, good. And the other question is, what should
What can we learn
from all of this, right?
I'm not so sure about that part, but what I really have seen among they seem to be a patient people. They seem to have patient people. I mean, 30 years after Mandela and the hope that would have sprung from that, you know, Mandela having been released 91, I think, and then coming to become president in 94. And then, I mean, obviously things have changed. Nobody should pretend that nothing has changed, but the pace of change has been a bit disappointing. So I see they have a healthy respect for the process. In fact, even when you look at their assembly and you look at the speakers and you look at even their courts, you know, it's almost like they're trying to do it better than the British. I don't know if I would agree with me, but they really they have all the trappings and they seem to enjoy the procedure. And then the people look to their leaders. I mean, there are over 40 parties in South Africa, and therefore there's a healthy interest in the democratic process. We can't find 3 parties of any significance in Jamaica. So I don't know. And I think part of that is different. The reason why I think they have that many parties is because it's a proportional representation method, whereas in our case, you have to win a seat. You have to actually win a seat, even no matter how many votes you got. And if you don't win a seat, you can't be in parliament. So that is one of the reasons. In terms of I think that this healthy respect for democracy is a good thing. I don't see, you know, some people are saying, yeah, but I would dismiss that about a return to apartheid. No, not a return to apartheid. That is not gonna happen. I mean, that's not even on the cards. But what we really are wondering about is how, for example, I looked up something to see how has the royalties on their mineral rights, how has that changed? And it hasn't changed much. It ranged from like 2, I'm not so sure, I don't want to quote the figures, but I've seen a range for gold and for diamonds and so on. And I think South Africa should be earning, the country itself should be earning much more than they are earning. And this is why they seem to be in the grip of the whole, you know, the power class that has controlled that economy. And something has to happen in order to loosen that up. But the ANC has not governed very well, especially in the last couple of years, in the last few years. And so whether it was corruption in the Zuma period or other things, favoritism, you know, patronage and that kind of thing, they have been guilty of those things. And what you really need now is for somebody serious to really take this in charge and govern effectively, you know, be fair and so on. So I'm hopeful, because I mean, you know, South Africa, we've come to, you know, appreciate them and like them as a country. And plus I am also into this situation where I want to see Africa take more control over their resources. What is happening in West Africa is at a different level. Well, we won't go into that tonight. Tonight is about South Africa. So that's how I'd wrap, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you so much, DP Stewart. Thank you so much, Kiwani and Mike. So good to hear you. If I had a prize, I would give you the Nobel Prize for.
If I could just make a comment, you see. We noticed that there is a new world order that is being.
Oh, the BRICS.
Yes. South Africa is not a small country or a small economy. South Africa is the second largest economy in Africa.
Yes.
I don't know how far down the line it is just globally, but it's not a small economy. It is clear that there are leadership in South Africa, which seem to be, I didn't know, for example, that there's a school in the South African, so in not South Africa, University of South Africa, headed by Thabo Mbeki, which is public and international affairs policy, you know, which is he is the professor in charge of that. So I think that I'm concerned that in the whole business of the reorder or the attempted reorder of the world economy, that I hope they don't get caught up into the East-West war, because I think that probably could in fact impact on their ability to provide, to take more of Black South Africans out of poverty. I think that Ramaphosa is the right choice as leader. I think, as I explained to you, he's the one who chaired the new constitution that they have, which is seemingly respected by all parties, although Zuma wanted to be rescinded and write a new one. And based on that, if their leadership can navigate that East-West BRICS data divide and focus on providing economic benefit to the bulk of South Africans, I think that they will continue and become a leading player, not just in BRICS, but primarily in Africa. And that is what probably would be best for the continent and for Black people generally. As far as Jamaica is concerned, I think we have a relationship with them. I think we need to expand that relationship, because there are opportunities that Jamaica probably could benefit from, because as I say, South Africa is not a small economy. It's a very sophisticated economy. It needs some renewal, and I hope that the next 5 years would provide a kind of renewal that will put it back on track so that they can take more Black people out of poverty.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just a point of information, just looked up, they are the 34th largest economy in the world, and the second largest in Africa, just behind Nigeria.
Algeria.
I was
Nigeria.
Marcia Stewart from KIWANIS, so Friends Across Borders. I just want to say thank you so very much for this. I was in South Africa in 2010. One of the outstanding things that was brought out in the panel presentation is the very fact that the means of production still remain in the hands of the whites. This we saw in 2010 when we were there for about a month. And there is great improvement. Listen, they have the best tourism you can think of. Don't allow anybody to tell you differently. I am hoping that more Jamaicans can visit South Africa. We're treated like royalty there. And also the fact that we don't even need a visa to get to South Africa. I also admire their medicine. The Cubans have a great part in the development of the medical field, especially in several countries on the continent, including South Africa. And their military is also equally strong. Again, part played by Cuba is very important to note as well. I want to say that it's still a young democracy. They have come a far way. The fact that the ANC still retain a power base is very important. When I was a student, many of the Encarta, the youth arm of the ANC, were exiled here on the university campus. Many people didn't even know that, I know, but they were exiled here. And I had the privilege to assist with fundraising for a number of them. And so the continent of Africa is in our blood. We can't deny that, and we only want what is good for them. And I am particularly in admiration for the way that their democracy, even with the propaganda that still goes on, that this country is really growing. I think we went into several states, including, in fact, we had a big major conference in Cape Town, and we end up in Durban. As you know, Durban is controlled by India. And so for the most part, it is a difficult country to govern, not only in terms of the geography of it, but the topography, as well as you have all mentioned the different tribal groups. I mean, the Zulu, but it's a fantastic country. When you go there, when we touched down there, the spirit of the motherland was pretty much what we felt. And the tears rolled. We touched the earth. We were taking up the earth. Some people brought back soil in bottles and so on. Part of it is the spiritual aspect of our DNA, which is connected to the continent. And so we wish good for the country. They admire the work as a little island that we had done in bringing the embargo onto the agenda of the United Nations. And we continue in support of South Africa and other countries. I think I speak for our generation that we were very much in support of what Mugabe did, in terms of maybe that was not the way Mandela wanted to go, but it did shift the means of production into the hands of the majority of the Blacks in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And can you identify yourself again? You say you are?
Marxist Stewart.
Okay, thank you for
cross borders.
Okay, thank you. You need to keep in touch with DP Stuart Spencer.
We do.
Okay.
All right, you need to keep in touch with me then.
My church brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That book that Mike had loaned. So Stuart, I would love to.
I must admit I don't remember, but I won't say he's wrong. I just but I'll have to check on that.
Okay, all right.
Once again, thanks everyone. DP Stuart, thank you so much. Kiwani and Mike, you sometimes I wish I was on some of those trips with you. I know you have not only been of benefit to Jamaica's development, man, but you went over to Africa, do things that some of us can only dream of. Like my sister, I met a number of South Africans in my earlier days, and I haven't seen them in recent times, but we became friends for years. When they used to come here, she said, not many people knew that many of them were at school here. And Jamaicans were the ones that took care of them, and they enjoyed being with us. Once again, thanks everybody for being on. DP Stuart, thank you for coming up with this idea. First, sorry that we went over so much, but thank you for allowing us to do it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, VP Rupert.
Back to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And the fact that nobody has moved is testament to the fact that we were taken to school tonight by DP Stuart and Kiwani and Michael. It's one of those topics that we know this is part 2, and I'm pretty sure 6 months or a year down the line we're going to have a third part to assess what we thought would happen, how it has unfolded. So thanks again, gentlemen. It has been a great presentation. And I'm pretty sure everyone enjoyed it. For those who are online now, remember we have it on our YouTube channel. So whatever you missed, you can go back and watch again. Because each time you watch, I'm pretty sure you find something that you missed. All right. As we said early on, it's past some people's bedtime. So let me move along. No, the Sarge Zuri did apologize that he's not going to be on, but he gave me some instructions. And so what he wanted me to tell you about was his experience of what happened to him today. So he said, to tell you, today I had someone knock on my door asking for small donations towards the local swimming pool. So I went back to my kitchen, came back and gave him a glass of water. So that was from the Sarge. Now, he has asked me to ask how many members of the Kiwanis Club online are not fathers as yet. And he says he'll get the tape so he knows who was on. He says, for those who are not fathers as yet, you can afford to donate $1,000 to the club's coffers. He says, for those who are fathers, he understands that you have school fees and all of that to pay. So your share of the burden is $500. So non-fathers, $1,000, fathers, $500. At this point, we're going to ask Secretary DLG Willie to address us read notices and announcements and interclubbing opportunities. DLG Willie, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Notices and announcements, DLG. Not hearing you. I think you're okay, you're back. Not hearing you, DLG, Willie. All right, while we're waiting on DLG Willie to sort out his microphone, I'll invite anyone else, any other Kiwanis Club online that has any notices. I know past President Robert, you have. So I'm inviting whoever has an announcement to please just open your microphone and do so, make it now.
Kiwanis Club of West St. Andrew will be having their guest speaker night tomorrow at JEF. We have gotten the Deputy Director from Kingston Creative to come and do our presentation tomorrow. And just my 2 cents, excellent presentation tonight. And this can be a chapter or a book because, you know, it's always learning once you have these distinguished gentlemen on board. So excellent learning tonight.
Thank you, past President Robert. Any other announcements?
All right, Prince, can you hear me?
I am hearing you now, DLG Willie.
All right, in the interest of time, very quickly, this Thursday, fellow Kiwanians, is our annual health fair at the Eternity United Church at 35A Slap Road, Kingston Clyde. Begins at 10, and it should be over by 3 o'clock. I'm encouraging or urging members just even drop in for half an hour, because we are not only treating the kids from the basic school which adjoins the church, we also running medical checks on the senior citizens in the adjoining community. On Sunday, June 23rd, is our third quarter DCM at the Kuna Mutual Auditorium, that's on Manhattan Road. The 3 delegates, to mention them again, President Designate, and the immediate past president. Registration begins at 9, and the cost is $1,500. Now, by now, you should have registered. If you have not, I did send out the registration form that you can complete. On Saturday, July 20th, we'll be hosting the National Dance Theatre Company in their 62nd season of dance, a benefit performance. Now, this will be the first benefit performance of the National Dance Theatre Company this year. Now we bought tickets, $850, and we are selling at $3,000. So please make a note in your diaries, fellow Kiwanians, and those of you who have friends, family members, please think of them on that occasion. It should be a grand evening, and we'll be having cocktails, benefit of the Caribbean Producers Limited. Children interclubbing opportunities, we have an invitation from New Kingston to join them tomorrow evening at their meeting. And on Thursday, June 20th, we have an invitation from the Kiwanis Club of Montego Bay to join them at their regular meeting. President Newton, those are your announcements for this evening and interclubbing opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, DLG Willie. Is there any other club apart from West St. Andrew that has any announcements for us this evening? No? All right. We know it has been, oh, sorry, I see Janet McPherson about to say something? No? All right. Okay. We know it has been a long evening, but it has been worth it. Everything we have heard this evening has been so on point and so beneficial to our minds. So at this point, all I have left to say is thanks to all who came and shared the evening with us. And it's now, believe it or not, it's now 9:04. So I would like to raise a toast. So I invite you to lift your glasses, whether imaginary or not, and raise a toast to Kiwanis International, Jamaica land we love. At 9:04, this meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston, this really great meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is regrettably terminated. See you all next week. And next week will be just as fine as this week. Thank you for coming. Those of you who aren't at home yet, safe journey home. Those of you who are at home,